It's 1994. The golden age of Hulkamania has faded into memory, and the World Wrestling Federation finds itself at a crossroads. There aren't enough main event heels, the babyfaces aren't connecting with audiences, and worst of all, the fans are losing interest in droves. Pay-per-view buy rates are plummeting. House show attendance is declining. And Vince McMahon, facing not only a ratings battle but also legal troubles stemming from the federal trial, is desperately searching for new stars to carry his company into what he's calling the new generation era. But here's the problem. The new generation isn't quite ready yet. Shawn Michaels is still finding his footing as a singles competitor. Diesel is just beginning his transition from bodyguard to main eventer. And the company's chosen one, Lex Luger, is proving to be a disastrous investment. Meanwhile, the legitimate star power that Vince does have, Bret Hart, The Undertaker, Randy Savage, is being either misused, sidelined, or driven away entirely. This is the story of 1994 in the WWF, a year defined by confused booking, desperate creative decisions, and a fundamental failure to build the stars they so desperately needed. The 1994 Royal Rumble took place on January 22nd at the Providence Civic Center in Providence, Rhode Island. It was only the second Royal Rumble ever to be held on a Saturday, and it would be the last Saturday Rumble until 2022. But what made this event truly memorable wasn't the day of the week. It was the unprecedented conclusion to its main event that left everyone scratching their heads. The Royal Rumble match came down to its final two competitors, Bret the Hitman Hart and the All-American Lex Luger. Both men had legitimate claims to a WrestleMania title shot. Bret as the fan favorite who had never received his proper coronation, and Luger as Vince McMahon's hand-picked successor to Hulk Hogan. The match built to what should have been a definitive conclusion, with Hart attempting a crossbody on Luger near the ropes. What happened next would go down as one of the most controversial finishes in Royal Rumble history. As Hart dove at Luger, both men tumbled over the top rope together, crashing to the floor in almost perfect synchronization. Multiple camera angles were shown, but none could definitively prove who had hit first. The referees at ringside argued. Ring announcer Howard Finkel appeared genuinely confused, first announcing one winner, then the other. In a recent interview, Lex Luger revealed that the finish was carefully choreographed. "We did," Luger confirmed when asked if they rehearsed the controversial ending. "Vince McMahon, Bret, and I all got in the ring. We talked a few things over. We worked it out. We wanted to keep it quick and simple. Bret cross-bodied me and took us out, then he spider-monkeyed me. He pulled me in so tight, and the way we hit the apron and to the floor, Bret got us both level and even to hit at the exact same time." Eventually, WWE President Jack Tunney came to the ring and made a decision that satisfied no one. Both Bret Hart and Lex Luger would be declared co-winners of the 1994 Royal Rumble. It was the first time in history the match had ended in a tie, and it exposed the fundamental problem with the WWE's booking at the time. They couldn't commit to either man as their undisputed top babyface. Looking back now, it's painfully obvious that Bret Hart should have won the 1994 Royal Rumble outright. The crowd was firmly behind him. He was the superior worker. He had the charisma and connection with the audience that Luger so desperately lacked. Most importantly, Bret had unfinished business with Yokozuna, the champion who had taken the WWE title from him in just 8 seconds at WrestleMania 9. The story practically wrote itself. But Vince McMahon still hadn't given up on making Lex Luger the new Hulk Hogan. And truth be told, he didn't fully trust Bret as the top guy in the company. This lack of faith would prove to be one of the defining and most damaging themes of 1994. Vince wanted Luger to be his golden boy, his Hulk Hogan 2.0, his ticket back to the mainstream success of the 1980s. The problem was that Luger was a total charisma vacuum compared to the Hulkster, and that had been obvious since the start of 1993. The Lex Express tour of the previous summer had generated some interest, but it was manufactured enthusiasm. When Luger body-slamming Yokozuna on the USS Intrepid on July 4, 1993, it felt like a momentary spark rather than the beginning of a sustained fire. By the time the Royal Rumble rolled around, that spark had long since faded, and the crowd's tepid reaction to Luger made the company's indecision even more glaring. While the Royal Rumble match's controversial finish dominated the conversation, another match on the card would have far-reaching consequences for the rest of the year. The Undertaker challenging Yokozuna for the WWE Championship in a casket match. The rivalry between Yokozuna and The Undertaker had begun at Survivor Series 1993, when The Undertaker became the first wrestler to sit up after taking Yokozuna's devastating Banzai drop. The WWE capitalized on this moment by booking a championship casket match, a stipulation that played to The Undertaker's strengths and Yokozuna's documented fear of enclosed spaces. In the weeks leading up to the match, the WWE aired atmospheric vignettes of The Undertaker, building a specially designed double-wide, double-deep casket for the massive champion. The match itself was an absolute mess. Yokozuna couldn't really hurt The Undertaker with conventional offense, so Mr. Fuji arranged for reinforcements. What followed was a parade of heels storming the ring to help Yokozuna beat the dead man. Crush came down first, followed by Bam Bam Bigelow, the Great Kabuki, and Genichiro Tenryu. Two Japanese wrestlers Fuji had specifically brought in to hurt Luger's Royal Rumble chances. The Undertaker fought them all off, looking like an unstoppable supernatural force. But then more heels arrived. Adam Bomb, Jeff Jarrett, the Head Shrinkers, Samu, and Fatu, and finally Diesel. That's 10 men total ganging up on one babyface. And here's what made it even more frustrating. Not a single babyface came out to help The Undertaker. Not Lex Luger, not Razor Ramon, not Randy Savage, not even Sparky Plugg, the all-around good guy making his WWE debut that same night. The Undertaker was left to fight alone against impossible odds, which made every face on the roster look like cowards. Eventually, Mr. Fuji stole The Undertaker's urn from Paul Bearer and opened it, releasing some kind of green smoke. This seemed to weaken The Undertaker enough for the heels to finally overpower him and stuff him into the casket. Yokozuna retained the championship, but the finish was so overbooked that it made the champion look incredibly weak. If you need 10 men to beat one opponent, what does that say about your credibility as champion? After the heels locked the casket, they wheeled it toward the entrance ramp. But then the casket began to smoke, and The Undertaker's music hit. On the arena's video screen, a camera showed the inside of the casket where The Undertaker lay seemingly dead. But then his eyes opened. Next, in what was supposed to be a dramatic special effect, The Undertaker's spirit appeared to rise from the casket and ascend into the rafters of the arena. It was meant to be awe-inspiring, but it looked pretty ridiculous, even by 1994 WWE standards. The ascending figure was reportedly Marty Jannetty in Undertaker costume, and the whole effect came across as more cheesy than supernatural. In reality, this theatrical death was designed to write The Undertaker off television, to allow Mark Calloway time to recover from a legitimate back injury. He wouldn't return until Summerslam, leaving a massive hole in the roster for the next 7 months. And when he did return, the creative team's solution would prove to be one of the worst ideas of the year. The Royal Rumble wasn't all bad news. The event also featured the official beginning of one of 1994's best storylines, the feud between Bret Hart and his younger brother Owen. The seeds had been planted at Survivor Series 1993, when Owen was accidentally eliminated from an elimination match after colliding with Bret on the ring apron. Owen blamed Bret for the loss and demanded a one-on-one match, which Bret refused, not wanting to fight his own brother. The Hart brothers attempted to reconcile over the Christmas holidays and decided to challenge the Quebecers for the WWE Tag Team Championship at the Royal Rumble. The match was excellent, but it ended in heartbreak when Bret suffered a kayfabe knee injury and the referee stopped the match. Owen, frustrated by another loss he blamed on his brother, finally snapped. He attacked Bret's injured knee and left him lying in the ring, officially turning heel and setting up what would become the best feud of the year. This was exactly the kind of compelling, character-driven storytelling the WWE needed more of in 1994. The Owen-Bret rivalry would produce some of the year's best matches and most emotionally resonant moments. But unfortunately, it was the exception rather than the rule. WrestleMania X took place on March 20th, 1994, at Madison Square Garden in New York City, a return to the venue where the very first WrestleMania had been held 9 years earlier. But while the location was iconic, the road to get there had been paved with some truly bizarre booking decisions. With both Bret Hart and Lex Luger recognized as Royal Rumble co-winners, WWE President Jack Tunney announced that both men would receive title shots against Yokozuna at WrestleMania. But how would they determine who got the first crack at the champion? A #1 contenders match would have made sense. It would have given fans a definitive answer and created additional interest in the WrestleMania card. Instead, Tunney opted for a coin flip, which was broadcast on Monday Night Raw on January 31st. Now, if wrestling were real, there is absolutely no way this is how it would have gone down. A legitimate sports organization would never determine championship opportunities by random chance. But the WWE wasn't trying to be realistic. They were trying to delay making a decision they clearly weren't comfortable making. The coin flip landed in Luger's favor, meaning he would face Yokozuna first. Bret would wrestle his brother Owen earlier on the card, with the stipulation that if Luger failed to win the title, Bret would face Yokozuna in the main event. Despite all the booking confusion, WrestleMania X delivered some truly exceptional wrestling. The opening match between Bret and Owen Hart is still considered one of the greatest opening matches in WrestleMania history. The two brothers had incredible chemistry, as you'd expect from siblings who had grown up wrestling each other in the legendary Hart family dungeon. The match was a technical masterpiece, with both men trading holds and counters at a pace that had the Madison Square Garden crowd on the edge of their seats. Owen, despite being the smaller and younger brother, wrestled with a vicious edge that made his heel turn feel authentic. And in a shocking upset, Owen actually pinned Bret clean in the middle of the ring with a victory roll. It was a legitimately surprising result that elevated Owen to main event status and set up a summer-long feud for the WWE Championship. Years later, Bret Hart came up to the 1-2-3 Kid after his semi-final match at King of the Ring and told him it was one of the best matches he'd seen in that time period. That's the caliber of competition Owen Hart was capable of producing when given the opportunity. If the Hart brothers match was a technical showcase, the latter match between Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels was a revolutionary spectacle that would influence wrestling for decades to come. While Bret and Shawn had technically wrestled a ladder match at a house show in 1992, this WrestleMania bout was the first ladder match most fans had ever seen, and it exceeded all expectations. The storyline was straightforward but effective. Shawn Michaels had been stripped of the Intercontinental Championship due to a contract dispute and refused to acknowledge Razor Ramon as the legitimate champion when Ramon won a tournament for the vacant title. The match was billed as a unification bout, with both titles hanging above the ring and the winner becoming the undisputed champion. What followed was 18 minutes of innovative, death-defying action. Both men took incredible bumps on and off the ladder. Shawn launched himself from the top of the ladder in a breathtaking splash. Razor delivered his Razor's Edge powerbomb on Michaels from the ladder. The finish came when Michaels' leg got tangled in the ropes, leaving him helpless as Ramon climbed the ladder and retrieved both championship belts. The match received a 5-star rating from Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter and was voted Match of the Year by readers of that publication. It was, as one reviewer described it, downright groundbreaking for the time, and an amazing match that put the ladder match on the map. This was the night Shawn Michaels truly earned his showstopper nickname, even in defeat. With 2 classic matches already in the books, it fell to Lex Luger to maintain the momentum in his championship match against Yokozuna. The bout featured Mr. Perfect as the special guest referee, and Luger's performance was adequate. He knocked out Yokozuna with his loaded forearm and went for the pin, but Perfect refused to count. Instead, Perfect disqualified Luger for shoving him earlier in the match. The finish was designed to protect Luger. He wasn't pinned, he wasn't submitted, and he technically had the champion beaten. But what was the point? The fans didn't buy it. They didn't erupt in outrage at the injustice. They simply didn't care. The Lex Express had run completely out of steam, and no amount of protective booking could change that fundamental reality. This should have been the moment Vince McMahon finally gave up on the Luger experiment. The crowd's indifference was deafening, but the WWE would continue trying to position Luger as a main eventer for the rest of the year, even as fans made it abundantly clear they wanted Bret Hart. With Luger's failure, Bret Hart got his shot at Yokozuna in the main event. Despite having already wrestled earlier in the evening, and lost, Bret was the clear crowd favorite. The match itself was nothing special from a technical standpoint. Yokozuna's size limited what was possible in the ring. But the story being told was perfect. The excellence of execution overcoming impossible odds. The finish came when Yokozuna attempted his banzai drop and lost his balance, allowing Bret to roll out of the way. Bret seized the opportunity and pinned the champion to win the WWE Championship for the second time. Madison Square Garden erupted as wrestlers flooded the ring to celebrate with the new champion. Razor Ramon, Lex Luger, Randy Savage, the 1-2-3 Kid, and even celebrity guests like Burt Reynolds joined the celebration. Watching from the entrance aisle was Owen Hart, glaring at his brother's triumph before turning and walking away. The image perfectly encapsulated the year ahead. Bret had finally won the gold, but his greatest challenge was yet to come, and it would come from his own family. WrestleMania X was, by most accounts, an excellent show, easily one of the top 5 WrestleManias ever, according to some reviewers. But despite Bret's victory, as we'd see later in the year, it wasn't exactly a show of full confidence from Vince McMahon and his new champion. The King of the Ring pay-per-view took place on June 19, 1994, at the Baltimore Arena. It was only the second year the tournament had been featured on pay-per-view, and while the show had some bright spots, it was overall not a very good event. The buy rate of 185,000 was down 60,000 from the year before, reflecting the company's declining popularity. The tournament itself was solid if predictable, with Owen Hart emerging as the obvious favorite from the first match. Owen defeated Tatanka in the quarterfinals, then beat the 1-2-3 Kid in an excellent semifinal bout that packed as much action as possible into its limited time. In the finals, Owen defeated Razor Ramon with help from his newest ally, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, who had abandoned Bret earlier that same night during his WWE Championship defense against Diesel. Owen's victory made sense from a storytelling perspective. He was following in his brother Bret's footsteps. Bret had won the King of the Ring in 1991 and 1993, and now Owen was claiming the crown for himself. During his coronation ceremony, Owen proclaimed himself the King of Hearts, an awesome nickname that perfectly captured his arrogance and his rivalry with his more celebrated brother. It really felt like Owen was poised to become a wrestler on the same level as his brother in the WWE. He had the talent, he had the charisma, he had momentum, but unfortunately, that never happened. Owen would remain a upper mid-card heel for the rest of his WWE career, never quite reaching the main event status his abilities warranted. If Owen Hart was the good part of King of the Ring 1994, Art Donovan was unquestionably the bad. The NFL Hall of Famer was brought in as a guest commentator alongside Gorilla Monsoon and Randy Savage, presumably because he had played for the Baltimore Colts and the show was emanating from Baltimore. That was the only fathomable reason for his presence, because Donovan had absolutely zero knowledge of professional wrestling. From the moment the broadcast began, when Gorilla Monsoon accidentally introduced him as Art O'Donnell, it was clear that this was going to be a disaster. Donovan spent the entire night asking the same questions over and over again. How much does this guy weigh? Who is this guy? How much does he weigh? His thick New York accent and complete bewilderment at everything happening in the ring made him more distracting than entertaining. You could tell that Monsoon and Savage were frustrated by Donovan's lack of knowledge. At one point during the show, the announcers were discussing Jim Neidhart's shocking betrayal of Bret Hart, and Donovan interrupted to ask, "Did you guys act that way in the ring when you were wrestling?" Monsoon just started talking over him. One match of Donovan's commentary might have been acceptable, but by the end of the night, fans at home were losing the will to live. The commentary has been universally panned in retrospective reviews, with some calling it the worst commentary in WWE history. Thankfully, the WWE didn't ask Art to come back for Summerslam. Perhaps the most telling sign of the WWE's lack of confidence in Bret Hart was the positioning of the WWE Championship match at King of the Ring. Despite Bret being the reigning champion, his title defense against Diesel was literally a mid-card match, not the main event. Instead, that honor went to Roddy Piper versus Jerry the King Lawler. The Bret Diesel match was actually quite good, with Bret pulling a strong performance out of the still-developing Kevin Nash. But the decision to put it in the middle of the card spoke volumes about how Vince McMahon viewed his champion. The WWE kept throwing around the new generation catchphrase all night, yet their main event featured two guys in their 40s. Hardly the fresh faces they were supposedly building the company around. The Piper vs. Lawler main event was, to put it charitably, an atrocious match. It was Piper's first match in 2 years, which partially explains why they gave it the main event spot. But it was a boring, plodding affair that felt completely anticlimactic after Owen Hart's coronation as King of the Ring. Summerslam. 1994 took place on August 29th at the brand new United Center in Chicago, Illinois, which had opened just 11 days earlier. The show featured two main events: Bret Hart defending the WWE Championship against Owen Hart in a steel cage match, and The Undertaker facing The Undertaker. Yes, you read that correctly. The steel cage match between the Hart brothers was fantastic, just like you'd expect from two men who had already proven their chemistry at WrestleMania. The cage stipulation added drama to their rivalry, with the only way to win being either pinfall, submission, or escaping over the cage wall or through the door. Bret and Owen used every inch of the cage, with Owen hitting a missile dropkick off the top rope that sent Bret crashing into the steel. The match totally stole the show, building to a dramatic finish where both brothers raced to escape the cage simultaneously. Bret managed to drop to the floor just seconds before Owen, retaining his championship. But the post-match attack from Owen and Jim Neidhart, who had been hiding under the ring, kept the feud alive and escalated the stakes. The British Bulldog, making his return to the WWE after spending 1993 in WCW, came to Bret's rescue, adding another layer to the family drama. So here's the crazy part. This match, which was for the WWE Championship and featured the best rivalry in the company, was not the main event of SummerSlam. That honor went to The Undertaker versus The Undertaker. It's absolutely mind-boggling that Vince McMahon still didn't have full faith in Bret Hart to lead the company, even when Bret was delivering Match of the Year candidates on pay-per-view. When The Undertaker was ready to return from his absence following the Royal Rumble casket match, the creative team faced a problem. There were no credible heels for him to face. So the WWE came up with one of the most bizarre solutions in company history. They decided to clone him. In the storyline, nobody knew where The Undertaker had disappeared to after his death at the Royal Rumble, but people kept claiming they had spotted him around the country. The WWE ran a series of vignettes featuring real people who claimed to have seen The Undertaker at a butcher shop, at schools, at jewelry stores, you name it. These skits were absolutely atrocious. They were all incredibly cheesy, featuring terrible actors, if they even were actors, delivering cringe-worthy testimonials about their Undertaker sightings. Then, the $1 Million Man showed up claiming that he had found The Undertaker and was bringing him back to the WWE. This made a certain amount of sense from a storyline perspective. Ted had originally introduced The Undertaker to the WWE at Survivor Series 1990. Paul Bearer, however, was having none of it and basically told Ted that he was lying. Bearer claimed that the man Ted had brought back was an imposter, and that he knew where the real Undertaker was. To help solve the mystery, the WWE brought in Leslie Nielsen, the legendary comedian from Airplane, and The Naked Gun, to portray his famous character Detective Frank Drebin in a series of comedic skits searching for the real Undertaker. Even one of the funniest people on the planet couldn't save this angle. The skits were mildly amusing at best, but they did nothing to generate genuine interest in the eventual showdown. Ted's Undertaker was portrayed by Brian Lee, a tall indie wrestler who was reportedly friends with Mark Calloway in real life. While Lee had the height, that's about where the similarities ended. He was the wrong height by comparison. He moved awkwardly. And on close inspection, he didn't look anything like the real Undertaker. It was like a guy doing a bad Undertaker tribute act at a kid's birthday party. The SummerSlam main event saw Paul Bearer wheel out a massive casket, from which he produced an enormous urn that emitted a blindingly bright beam of light. Reportedly the light from a commercial jet, according to Bearer in later interviews. After much theatrical build-up, the real Undertaker finally emerged, dressed in purple instead of his imposter's gray. The crowd popped for the genuine article, but the match itself was a disaster. The bout lasted about 9 minutes and was a total borefest. Two slow, methodical wrestlers doing a slow, methodical match showing barely any emotion between them. The action consisted mostly of punches, clotheslines, and the occasional sit-up. The fake Undertaker hit a chokeslam, and the real one sat up. The fake hit a tombstone pile driver, and the real one sat up again. Finally, the real Undertaker reversed a tombstone attempt and delivered 3 consecutive tombstones of his own to secure the victory. As soon as the match was done, the storyline was dropped and never mentioned again. Brian Lee's Undertaker was rolled into the casket and wheeled away, never to be seen in that role again. Lee would eventually return to the WWE in 1997 under the name Chains, but his time as the Undertaker was mercifully brief. This match has to be one of the worst SummerSlam main events ever, if not the worst. The fact that it main evented over Bret vs. Owen in a cage match for the WWE Championship defies all logic. It perfectly encapsulated the WWE's 1994 problem, prioritizing spectacle over substance, sizzle over steak. One thing that became very clear at SummerSlam was that Lex Luger had officially been demoted to mid-card status. Instead of challenging for the WWE Championship, Luger found himself in a feud with Tatanka, a storyline built on weeks of Tatanka accusing Luger of selling out to Ted and joining the $1 Million Corporation. The entire feud amounted to a months-long argument of accusations and denials. Every week, Tatanka would cut an angry promo claiming Luger had taken Ted's money, and Luger would insist he hadn't. As Randy Savage astutely observed on commentary, Luger was either telling the truth or he's lying. The build was tedious, and the WWE even ran a 99-cent phone poll where fans could vote on whether they believed Luger had sold out. At SummerSlam, the payoff revealed that it was actually Tatanka who had secretly joined the $1 Million Corporation all along. The $1 Million Man came to ringside during the match, and while Luger yelled at him, Tatanka rolled up Luger for the pin. After the match, Tatanka attacked Luger and applied Ted's signature $1 Million Dream, stuffing money in Luger's mouth to complete the betrayal. The problem was that Tatanka was the company's ultimate mid-carder. Losing to him, even through deception, really put a full stop on Luger's status on the roster. From WrestleMania title contender to SummerSlam mid-card act in just 5 months. That was the trajectory of the Lex Express. Randy Savage was one of the few remaining superstars from the Golden Era, still with the WWE in 1994. But he wasn't happy with his position. The Macho Man still had so much to give in the ring. He was only 41 years old and remained one of the most recognizable faces in wrestling. But Vince McMahon had sidelined him behind the commentary desk, where he'd been working since Monday Night Raw debuted in January 1993. To be fair, Savage was actually quite good as a color commentator. His energetic style, distinctive raspy voice, and genuine enthusiasm made him entertaining to listen to. He was certainly 100 times better than Art Donovan. But Randy Savage didn't want to be a commentator. He wanted to be a wrestler. And he proved repeatedly that he could still go in the ring, delivering solid performances whenever he was given the opportunity to compete. His last significant WWE match was a Falls Count Anywhere bout against Crush at WrestleMania X, which he won. He made periodic wrestling appearances throughout the year, and even worked some matches for Jim Cornette's Smoky Mountain Wrestling promotion. But instead of being utilized as an in-ring performer who could help elevate younger talent, he was largely confined to the announce table. As 1994 wore on, it became clear that Savage and the WWE were headed for a split. His final WWE match was on September 13, 1994, in Germany, where he teamed with Bret Hart to defeat Owen Hart and Jim Neidhart. His last pay-per-view appearance came at SummerSlam, where he served as the Master of Ceremonies. His final WWE television appearance was on the October 31st episode of Monday Night Raw, where he made a save for Lex Luger against Bob Backlund. In a rare moment of on-air candor, Vince McMahon addressed Savage's departure on the November 7th episode of Raw. At this time, obviously conspicuous by his absence, is the Macho Man Randy Savage. And I'd like to announce, unfortunately, that Randy Savage has been rather to come to terms with the World Wrestling Federation for a new contract. But Randy, I know you're out there listening. And on behalf of all us here in the World Wrestling Federation, all of your fans, and certainly me, the #1 fan, I'd like to say thank you for all of your positive contributions to the World Wrestling Federation. Thank you, Randy Savage, for all the wonderful memories for so many years here in the World Wrestling Federation. We wish you nothing but the best. Godspeed, and good luck." Years later, Savage explained his decision to leave in an interview. "They wanted me to do the commentary thing, which I will want to do someday. But I just wasn't ready to take off my boots at that point. I'm glad I didn't. It wasn't anything but an attitude or a direction which the WWE was going, and they proved me to be 100% correct in where they were going, because they had a vision in where they were going. But at the same time, it didn't work for me at that time." Savage signed a $6 million contract with World Championship Wrestling and made his WCW debut on December 3, 1994, on Saturday night. He proved he could still wrestle, winning the WCW World Heavyweight Championship at World War III in November 1995 and remaining an active competitor well into the late 1990s. The WWE's loss was WCW's gain, and it was entirely self-inflicted. If 1994 proved anything, it was that the WWE didn't have enough credible main event heels. This problem reached its absurd peak at Survivor Series, when Bret Hart defended the WWE Championship against Bob Backlund of all people. Backlund had been the WWE Champion from 1978 to 1983, holding the title for over 2,000 days, one of the longest reigns in company history. He had returned to the WWE in 1992 as a wholesome babyface, competing in the 1993 Royal Rumble match for over an hour. But by 1994, he was mostly working opening matches against enhancement talent. He was, by all appearances, a nostalgia act with nothing left to offer. Everything changed on July 30th, 1994. In a match billed as Old Generation vs. New Generation, Backlund challenged Bret Hart for the WWE Championship on Superstars. Bret won the match fairly, but when he tried to shake Backlund's hand afterward, Backlund snapped. He slapped Bret across the face and locked him in the cross-face chicken wing, a submission hold he hadn't used since his original run. Backlund refused to let go, screaming hysterically while officials tried to pry him off the champion. From there, Backlund spiraled into a heel character unlike anything he'd played before. He ranted about morality and proper grammar. He demanded everyone call him Mr. Backlund. He insisted he had never truly lost the WWE Championship in 1983, claiming that his manager Arnold Scanlon throwing in the towel didn't count as a real defeat. He attacked wrestlers and WWE personnel alike, locking them in the cross-face chicken wing and refusing to release it. It all felt completely out of step with everything the new generation was supposed to represent. Here was the WWE, supposedly building toward the future with young, athletic stars. Yet their top heel challenger for the biggest show of the fall was a 45-year-old relic from the previous decade. But maybe that was the point. Backlund represented everything the new generation was supposed to leave behind. The Survivor Series title match had a unique stipulation. It was a throw-in-the-towel match, where the only way to win was to force your opponent's cornerman to throw a towel into the ring, signifying surrender. This stipulation directly referenced how Backlund had lost his original title reign to the Iron Sheik in 1983. Bret had Davey Boy Smith in his corner. Backlund had Owen Hart in his. The match was a grueling old-school wrestling contest that lasted over 35 minutes. Bret and Backlund traded holds, with Bret working for the sharpshooter and Backlund repeatedly going for the cross-face chicken wing. At one point, Bret had Backlund locked in the sharpshooter, and Owen begged Backlund's manager, the role he was playing, not to throw in the towel. The psychology was excellent, even if the action was slow. The finish was pure soap opera. While Bret was distracted, Backlund applied the cross-face chicken wing and held on for an extended period. Davey Boy Smith chased Owen around the ring but fell and was kayfabe knocked unconscious on the ring steps, leaving Bret without anyone to throw in his towel. Owen, feigning concern for his brother, went to their parents Stu and Helen Hart, who were sitting at ringside. What followed was Oscar-worthy acting from Owen Hart. He begged his parents to stop the match, claiming he never meant for the feud to go this far, even dropping to his knees in tears before his mother. Stu Hart, suspicious of Owen's motives, grabbed the towel and refused to hand it over. But Helen, unable to watch her son Bret suffer any longer in the hold, grabbed the towel from her husband and threw it into the ring. Bob Backlund was awarded the WWE Championship. After 11 years, the man who had never truly accepted losing the title was champion again. Owen revealed the ruse immediately, running to the back with Bret's towel raised triumphantly over his head. It was a brilliant piece of storytelling that made Owen look like the most devious heel in the company. Fans couldn't believe what they had just seen, and not in a good way. It felt utterly absurd, like the company had completely lost the plot. Their top babyface champion had just lost the title to a crazy old man thanks to his own brother tricking their mother. The new generation's brightest star had been vanquished by a representative of everything they were supposedly moving past. But just a few days later, the real plan became clear. Backlund was never meant to be a long-term champion. He was just a shortcut, a middleman, a way to get the belt off Bret Hart and onto Diesel without Diesel having to beat another top babyface. At that same Survivor Series, the WWE Tag Team Champions Shawn Michaels and Diesel had their relationship begin to fracture. During an elimination match, Michaels accidentally superkicked Diesel, costing their team and leading to a visible argument between the two. This would eventually lead to their breakup and Diesel's babyface turn. If the WWE had spent 1994 building up real, credible heels, they wouldn't have had to hotshot the likes of Backlund or a fake Undertaker into the main events of their pay-per-views. The creative bankruptcy was showing, and no wonder so many fans were switching off by the end of the year. Three days after Survivor Series, Bob Backlund defended the WWE Championship against Diesel at Madison Square Garden. It was a house show, not televised, not on pay-per-view, not even on Raw. And here's why. The WWE had already taped every episode of Raw for the month back in October. With no pay-per-view coming up, they literally had no platform to broadcast the title change they were planning. The match itself was almost comically brief. Diesel entered Madison Square Garden as the newest babyface in the company, having just turned on Shawn Michaels 3 days earlier. Backlund was announced as the defending champion. The bell rang. Diesel hit one boot to the face, one jackknife powerbomb, pin, new champion. The entire match lasted approximately 8 seconds. 8 seconds. That's all it took to crown the man Vince McMahon was betting the company on. It was a deliberate callback to how Hulk Hogan had won the WWE Championship from the Iron Sheik in 1984. A quick, dominant victory over a hated villain that instantly established the new champion as a force to be reckoned with. The difference was that Hogan's victory came at a sold-out Madison Square Garden with proper build and anticipation. Diesel's victory came at a house show with a few days' notice. Diesel had been one of the few genuine bright spots in 1994. His Royal Rumble performance, where he eliminated 7 men, a record at the time, had established him as a monster. His Intercontinental Championship reign had given him credibility. His tag team with Shawn Michaels had kept him in the spotlight. The WWE had spent the entire year building him up as a legitimate main eventer, and then they crowned him champion in the most underwhelming way possible. No pay-per-view spectacle, no dramatic finish, no moment that fans would remember for years to come. Just a house show in New York and an 8-second squash that most fans only learned about after the fact. There was a personal element to the timing. Diesel's mother was suffering from breast cancer at the time and would pass away about a month later. Having the title change happen quickly, at a venue with so much history, likely meant something to Kevin Nash personally. But from a business standpoint, it was a strange way to launch what was supposed to be a new era. The WWE was trying to recreate the Hulkamania magic with Diesel, a big, powerful, charismatic babyface who would dominate opponents and give fans someone to cheer for. But Diesel wasn't Hogan. He didn't have Hogan's charisma. He didn't have Hogan's connection with the audience. And the business wasn't as hot in 1994 as it had been in 1984. 1995 would be the real disaster when it came to Big Daddy Cool's reign as champion. A year of declining ratings, disappointing buy rates, and growing evidence that Diesel couldn't carry the company the way Vince McMahon hoped. Looking back at 1994, the WWE's problems can be traced to a few fundamental failures. First, and most importantly, they failed to build credible main event heels. Without strong villains, the babyfaces had no one compelling to fight. This led to desperate measures like bringing in a fake Undertaker, pushing the 45-year-old Bob Backlund as a title contender, and running repetitive feuds that went nowhere. Second, the The company never fully committed to Bret Hart as their top guy. Despite being the reigning WWE champion for most of the year, Bret was frequently treated as an afterthought. His title matches weren't main events. His feuds were overshadowed by gimmick matches and spectacle. Vince McMahon kept searching for the next Hulk Hogan, instead of recognizing that he already had a legitimate star in Bret, just a different kind of star. Third, the Lex Luger experiment was an expensive failure that wasted valuable roster spots and creative energy. The WWE spent all of 1993 and much of 1994 trying to make Luger happen, but the fans never bought it. By the time they finally gave up on him as a main eventer, they had lost Randy Savage to WCW and watched The Undertaker miss half the year with injuries. Fourth, the departure of Randy Savage represented a massive missed opportunity. Here was a proven draw, a legitimate legend, a man who could have helped elevate younger talent while remaining a competitive performer. Instead of using him properly, the WWE put a headset on him and pushed him toward retirement before he was ready. Savage proved in WCW that he still had plenty left to give. Like and subscribe for 100 years of luck. Until next time.